Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're getting into something that, let's be honest, has driven so many of us crazy. Why is learning a new language just so incredibly hard? We're going to dig into a theory that might just change the way you think about that forever.
I mean, really think about it. How many of us spent years in a classroom memorizing vocab lists, drilling verb conjugations, and yet the second we're in a situation where we have to have a real conversation, we just freeze up. We struggle to get the words out fluently. What is going on there?
Well, what if the answer isn't about studying harder at all? What if it's about learning more like a kid? That's the idea a linguist named Krashen put forward, and honestly, it completely flips the script on this whole problem. He suggested we've been looking at it all wrong. So, where does Krashen start? Well, he basically says that our whole traditional approach to language learning is built on one giant misunderstanding. His big idea, the central idea, is that we actually have two completely separate ways of getting good at a language. And getting your head around this one difference, that is the first crucial step to actually becoming fluent. All right, so let's dive right into the heart of it. This is the core of Krashen's theory. It's called the acquisition-learning hypothesis. And believe me, everything else is built on this foundation. So on one side, you've got acquisition. This is totally subconscious. It's exactly how a kid learns to talk, right? They're not studying grammar, they're just absorbing it from the world around them. Then on the other side, you have learning. This is the stuff we do in school, the conscious effort of studying rules and memorizing vocab lists. Now here's Krashen's bombshell. He says only acquisition, that subconscious part, is what actually makes you fluent. Learning, he argues, does something else entirely, something much more limited.
Okay, so this whole acquiring versus learning thing is the main event. But it's backed up by four other big ideas that all lock together to create this really complete picture of how we get fluent.
So you might be asking, if conscious learning doesn't make us fluent, then what's the point of it? And that's where the monitor hypothesis comes in. Krashen says all that stuff we learned in class, it acts like an internal grammar checker, or a monitor, that edits what we're about to say. But, and this is a big but, that little editor in our head has some serious drawbacks. For it to even work, you need time to think, you have to actually know the rule you're trying to apply, and you have to be focused on being grammatically perfect. In a real, fast-moving conversation, trying to use that monitor too much is exactly what causes us to hesitate and sound unnatural. It's that nagging voice that makes you second-guess everything.
Okay, so the next piece of the puzzle is the natural order hypothesis. This is a fascinating one. It basically says that we all acquire grammar in a very predictable order, and get this, it doesn't matter when your teacher decides to teach you the rules. Your brain has its own schedule.
So for example, researchers have seen this time and time again with people learning English. They almost always get the hang of the ing ending, like in he is running, way before they nail the third-person s, like in he runs. A textbook could teach that s rule on day one, but it just won't stick until the brain is ready to acquire it. All right, so if we can't just force our brains to learn things in a certain order, how in the world do we get any better? Well, this leads us to maybe Krashen's most famous idea of all, the input hypothesis. He says the real engine that drives us forward is something he calls comprehensible input. That means getting language that you can mostly understand, but that's just a tiny bit beyond what you already know. He called it I+1. And this is absolutely the key takeaway here. We don't learn to speak by practicing speaking. No. Krashen argues that fluent speech just happens. It emerges, all on its own, but only after we've listened and understood enough of that comprehensible input. You have to get the input first. Speaking is the result, not the cause. Okay, so we need lots of comprehensible input, but what if something is blocking it? This brings us to the final piece, the affective filter hypothesis. And this one is all about our feelings. Krashen basically said there's this invisible emotional shield that can either let language in or block it from ever reaching the part of our brain that acquires it. So what raises this filter? Well, think about times you felt super stressed in a language class. That's high anxiety. Or when you're just not feeling confident at all. Or maybe you're just not motivated. When any of those things are high, that filter goes way up. And when the filter's up, it doesn't matter how perfect the input is. It's like a wall. It just bounces right off. This is why you can have two people in the exact same class and one thrives while the other struggles. Okay, so we've got these 5 big ideas. How do they all fit together? Well, when you lock them all in place, you get this really clear, complete model of the journey to fluency. Yeah, this diagram just lays it all out perfectly. See? You start with comprehensible input, that I+1.
It has to get past the effective filter. If that filter is down, meaning you're relaxed, you're confident, the input gets through to what Krashen called the language acquisition device in your brain. And then, over time, as that acquired knowledge builds up, fluent speech just starts to come out.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? For teachers, for students, for anyone learning a language, it's simple. The goal has to be creating these low-stress environments where you can just focus on understanding the message, not on getting every single grammar point right.
All right, so this theory sounds amazing, right? But what does it actually look like when you're in a classroom or even just studying by yourself? How do you do this? Okay, let's put it into action. Imagine a teacher shows you this picture. Now remember, the goal here isn't to test you. The goal is to give you a ton of that juicy, comprehensible input.
And here's where the theory really comes to life. A bad question, one that raises that filter, would be, where is the man eating? Ugh, that forces you to come up with a whole sentence and you start to feel stressed. But a good question, a low filter question, is something like, is the man eating a sandwich or a pizza? See the difference? All you have to do is recognize a word. You answer, you feel successful, you build confidence, and that filter stays right where you want it, down low.
I mean, this quote from the source material just nails it, doesn't it? The best way to learn a language is not through rigorous grammar drills, but through comprehensible input provided in a low-anxiety environment. That's the whole thing in a nutshell.
And when you really think about it, that just changes everything. The goal isn't perfection anymore. It's not about being afraid to make mistakes. The focus shifts to just communicating, to connecting with another person. You're just trying to get your point across and understand them, trusting that the fluency, it'll come.
And that's the really powerful question Stephen Krashen's theory leaves us with. It challenges, really challenges, the way most of us were taught, and it makes you wonder, could the real secret to fluency not be about studying harder, but just about feeling more comfortable?